Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So yet we have another trans athlete who is completely smoking the women when it comes to track and field. Over in Oregon, of course, we have them accepting male athletes into the women's category, justifying it under the guise of inclusion. But what people aren't addressing is the exclusion that is taking place with women and girls as we speak in their very own sports. No one cares about women being excluded. No one cares about them feeling they have to self-exclude because they can't participate in sports under these new terms that has been sprung upon them. This is what is happening now in women's sports. If you want to participate, you have to accept the terms or you will be excluded and you will be villainized, you'll be called a bigot, and it's the women and the girls who end up being the ones harassed and bullied. The very thing they claim to want to protect trans athletes from is happening to women right now. This is one of the worst examples I've seen of a male athlete completely humiliating the female athletes. Although the female athletes have nothing to be ashamed of. They're participating in the correct category, whereas one person in that race that we're about to see clearly wasn't. And it's undeniable. I don't see how you can see things like this happening in women's sports and turn a blind eye and say this is progressive, especially the feminists. Let me tell you something. I used to do 400-meter hurdles. My coach, for some reason, thought I'd be good at it and decided to torture me and make me do, first it was 300 meters, then it turned into 400-meter hurdles. So this person, right, this male athlete, you can tell he was fading in the last 200 meters because there's a way to run 400 meters. You don't just go all out as if you're doing 100 meters. And he was fading in the last 200 meters there. But because of the sheer speed that this person built up in the first 200 meters, you can see how far ahead this person was. And you can see that despite fading in the last 200 meters, this person still won by an incredible margin. Ridiculous margin. That is absolutely undeniable that this person has an advantage. No woman would win by that margin unless she was an Olympic athlete racing some high school kids. It's as simple as that. No woman would win by that margin. No high school girl would win by that margin. If she is qualified like everyone else and enters into that competition, unless she's some sporting marvel, next week she's going to be in the Olympics, no woman would win by that margin. So it's not appropriate for this person to be in their category. As we know, male bodies are different from female bodies. This is nothing new. I feel like a broken record. This is why we have categories in sports. And to think that it's appropriate to completely do away with categories just to appease somebody's gender identity, to think that that's fair to the women is just delusional. And you can't tell me that the women have to be okay with this. This is not the terms by which we participate in sports. No, when we participate in sports, we know that we're going to be put in categories in the correct category. Women have an expectation that they're going to be competing against other women. They have the right to that expectation. And for you to tell them that they don't have that right anymore, or that that right isn't being infringed upon just because the person identifies as a woman, you're lying to them, you're gaslighting them, and you're disrespecting them. And you're completely dismissing their rights. as female athletes to participate in sports fairly and safely. So no, anybody who sees that and is still okay with transgender athletes who are male competing in the women's category, you're not for women. You're certainly not a feminist, and you're probably a misogynist who likes to see women being humiliated. As long as the male athlete gets what he wants, you have no problem with the females being humiliated, with the females having their sports stolen from them. The women who came second and third there, they seem to be doing pretty well. But of course, it doesn't matter because they're not male. So you put them in a race with a male athlete, that's what you're going to get. And apparently this person came second in the 200 meters. I'm not buying that. I'm not convinced that this person put their all into that 200 meter race. Not convinced. Like I've said before, some of these male athletes, they pick and choose what they want to dominate to take the heat off them a bit, because it's embarrassing for you to compete and win by that margin because it makes it so obvious that you shouldn't be in that category. It's embarrassing to the male athlete.
Mental aspect or the psychological aspect of like people targeting you if you do well, or singling you out, as having unfair advantage. It slows me. I slow myself down.
Talking about women being humiliated, no, the person who should be embarrassed is the male athlete because it's so obvious. And if you're happy winning this way, I've got nothing to say to you, but it shouldn't be allowed. The sporting bodies should not allow this, but we know how woke Oregon is, or at least Portland. We know how woke it is there. So an Oregon high school transgender runner caused outrage on social media on Wednesday after competing in several events at the Portland Interscholastic League Championship semi-finals against girls. Of course, this person qualified for the finals. So Aayden Gallagher at McDaniel High School finished in first place in the 400-meter preliminary event with a 56.14 time. So that was 0.23 seconds better. Gallagher finished second in the 200-meter preliminary event with a time of 24.49, about 0.17 slower than the first place finisher. Again, after that performance in the 400 meters, I'm not convinced that that was a genuine, second place. But whatever. It doesn't make sense. If you can smoke your competitors like that in one race, why on earth would you come second in the other race? 400-meter runners usually do 200 meters. And 100-meter runners usually do 200 meters. So it's in a similar category of race. So why would you not smoke the 200-meter runners? I'm not buying it. Same thing with Leah Thomas. One race, Leah completely beats everybody by body lengths in the 500-meter freestyle. But when it came to, other events, Leah was coming fifth. I think one of the heats, Leah actually came last. And I thought, okay, that's convincing. No. Again, when it's girls competing against other girls, you don't see the star athlete coming first in one race and fifth in another. She comes first in everything. Or there might be somebody, who's just as good as her and they're the two rivals, and sometimes that person comes first, sometimes the other person gets beaten, whatever. It's been well documented that these male athletes like to pick and choose what their favourite race is, what they're going to dominate in, and what they're going to allow the girls to win occasionally. Women deserve better than this. This is their sports. This is what we've been doing for the longest time. And now it's being ruined. So two-time Olympic runner Mara Yamachi was among those who spoke out. He's not even putting in a max effort. Disgusting, she wrote on X. On the plus side, this is a clear illustration of male advantage. All females finish close together. Exactly. He is way ahead. Everyone who allows males in the female category should hang their heads in shame. Cowards. Very well said there. Then we had the US 24-hour national team member, Carolyn Johnson, also weighed in. So glad to see women athletes speaking about this. And here we go again, she wrote on X. And do not come on here and say the girls should just refuse to compete. The adults are the problem, and we all know it. Stop telling kids that one boy's feelings matter more than every other girl they compete against. Thank you. This is the common sense we need to hear from world-class athletes, especially female athletes. And she's right. The adults are allowing this. They're subjecting these kids to this foolishness. And it's so sad because they're letting their crazy politics, their ideologies, their cult affect the children. And they should hang their heads in shame. Piers Morgan, I'm not a huge fan of his these days, but you know, he's right about the women's sports issue. Any woman who supports this crap is a traitor to their sex. It's shameful that the integrity of women's sport is being destroyed like this. Absolutely. The Oregon School Activities Association has a policy for transgender participation in high school sports. Let me guess, you just have to identify. There just has to be your public identification. Because Oregon, I can imagine, their requirements are probably the most relaxed. The OSAA endeavours to allow students to participate for the athletic or activity program of their consistently asserted gender identity, while providing a fair and safe environment for all students. As with Rule 8.2 regarding duration of eligibility, graduation, rules such as this one promote harmony and fair competition among member schools by maintaining equality of eligibility and increase the number of students who will have an opportunity to participate in interscholastic activities. Absolute load of baloney. So basically, you just have to identify as a woman. There's no requirements for hormones or anything like that, which doesn't mean anything anyway, but still. As long as he says he's a woman, he can participate in the women's category. And they're talking about increasing inclusion. But on what terms? Because in order for the women to feel included, they have to be willing to be humiliated like that. They have to be willing to participate in an unfair competition. Why can't this person participate in the correct category? Or if it's that serious, create a new category. Why is it acceptable to do this to the women's category in the name of inclusion? Now, I know for a fact there's going to be young girls who think, I'm not going to bother, and walk away from competing in this particular sport. And that's tragic. Through no fault of their own, they are going to feel excluded. They are going to feel that they don't have a say, that their participation fairly and safely doesn't matter. That's the message you're giving these young girls. And to talk about safety is absolutely ridiculous. This is athletics or track and field, but this also applies literally to combat sports too, or even sports like volleyball and basketball, where we have seen female athletes injured. So if you think this is perfectly fair, you think this is okay to do this to girls, you're certainly part of the problem, and you certainly don't care about young girls and women and their participation in sports. And then to think, our president-in-chief had the nerve to tweet this recently. As a nation, we need to support women's sports by showing up in person and watching on TV with more sponsorships and programming, not just during championships, but all year round. Let's grow women's sports and continue inspiring the nation. And of course, now they're taking notice because we had the most watched, female college basketball event ever this year. So now they're taking notice, and now they want to protect women's sports, or now they want to, promote women's sports. But when it comes to your gender ideology, you couldn't care less about women's sports. You will have it ruined in a second just to uphold your cult. It's absolutely disgusting, and absolute hypocrisy of this administration, absolute gaslighting that female athletes have to endure at the hands of the people at the very top. Now you care about women's sports. But when we ask you, is it okay for male athletes to participate in the women's category, you say yes. Somehow I have a feeling that they're going to try and, hold off on allowing trans athletes to be in the WNBA or to be in, college basketball. Somehow I think they're going to try and avoid that because they actually care about that now. And they know for a fact that it ruins the integrity of the sport. They know this for a fact. That's why when it comes to international levels, a lot of sporting bodies are turning away from this whole, trans athletes in women's categories. There's a lot of sponsorship at stake, a lot of money at stake. I mean, that's what he mentioned right there, didn't he? But think about the young girls in school who just want to compete fairly. Think about them. They matter too. Not just the big names, not just where the money's at. On all levels, women's sports should be respected. And Riley Gaines' response? The easiest way to support women's sports is to keep men out of them. Biden and his admin are virtue signalling sellouts, pandering to get votes, and it's obvious to anyone with any amount of brain activity. From the replies I've seen on this, they would have been better not posting it. Well, clearly, you are scum. I mean that wholeheartedly. This is abuse. You are psychologically abusing the women and girls of America. Hell is too good for you. The audacity, after you just mandated girls to surrender their sports opportunities to boys. Save Title IX. Hear to that? He had the nerve to tweet that. I really cannot believe he had the nerve to tweet that. They really should have just posted the photo and left it there. But to say that you want to support women's sports when you've just rewritten Title IX to essentially exclude women from their own sports and their own spaces. You can't say you support women when you don't know what a woman is. You can't say you support women while at the same time saying that anybody can be a woman. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves. Like and subscribe, and God willing, I will see you in the next video.